Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair, and I am so excited to introduce today's guest and my new friend. We met at Collective Evolution. She is an amazing human being, a beautiful soul, and now I'm going to describe her a little bit as I'm messing up her intro. She's a natural-born medium, wholeness expert, teacher, lecturer, mom, and host of the Lighter Side Show, where she encourages learning truths through humor while letting go of learned behavior. She is the founder of the Center of Love and Light, a live event space, co-founder of a nonprofit learning environment, the Love and Light Institute, cultivating the potential within. Her life goal is to teach people of all ages about the infinite possibilities for healing, joy, and success available to us when wholeness living is incorporated into our daily lives. Welcome to the show, Jamie Butler.
Gosh, Jamie. That is so amazing to hear out loud. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. You know what? In listening to your intro, I might weasel in and get you to expand your mastermind, body, soul, and add a little emotion to it.
Yeah, you're probably right. Because I have the description and then I read it, and sometimes I just write it like a robot. So I'm glad you called me out on that, and I can express even more next time.
You are such a wonderful man, and you have such a way of expressing how you feel. For me, coming at this whole angle of like a wholeness living or wholeness approach, emotions are very valuable, and I think our language doesn't really support it enough. So it's just the mind, body, soul always gets my brain kicking. I'm like, wait a second, we have this other valuable thing, emotions, that's just as important. So
I love that. And you're the director, creator of the Lighter Side Network, where you allow me to see some of the work that you're doing over there. We're kind of in pre-launch over there, where you're kind of like similar to Gaia, conscious content teachers, leaders, educators. You got spirituality, consciousness, meditation, mediums like yourself. So Why don't we begin with a little bit about your background, because it's cool, it's intense. How you got to where you are today and where you're going. I'll start with that.
Do I ever really know where I'm going, Matt?
Probably not.
Probably not. No, quick background is that since I can remember, I have always been able to see with my eyes, energy and spirit, and I've been able to hear with my ears. And it's a very external way of perceiving the information. It's not like an internal ear or an internal eye. And growing up, I thought everybody else had viewed the world similar to the way that I did. Until around age 6, my parents kind of had enough of my imagination. My imaginary friends were taking over and wanted to really help me normalize and kind of be a part of society, and told me to quit it and made me say goodbye to this part of my life, which was really difficult because at this time I kind of built my personality around talking with them and engaging with them. And I'm already 6 years into this life, and I've never identified what it is to be lonely, because they're always there. So at 6, my world kind of turns upside down. I'm alone. When I go to bed at night, it's dark, and I'm trying to figure out what is really happening. Why am I being left? And from 6 to 18, my whole experience with this ability to engage with energy the way that I used to just came across in dreams. And then when I moved away to college, it kind of all came back, which was not exactly what I was asking for. Like, I wasn't trying to tap back into anything, really. I'm like 12 years past saying goodbye. I'm mending, and all of a sudden this energy starts showing back up. I start hearing voices, and now I can identify that I am crazy, that this is not right, and this is a mental illness and a disease, and I need help. And I tried everything from wonderful creative drugs. And what was nice is the drugs would make my abilities go away, and as soon as I would sober up, the dead people would show back up again, the lovely voices, the assistance, the helping. And I remember my other friends wanted to take drugs to kind of expand their awareness and get into this. And I was taking it to make it go away and to get numb. So there was one point I called home and I told my father, I was like, this is it. You got to admit me into the hospital. I can't do this anymore. I need medication. And he told me, he was like, well, wait a second. Why don't you talk to your grandmother first? And why don't you tell her about this? I was like, I'm not so close to her, my dad's mom, but I'll call her. And she launched into this speech about how it was normal in my family, which they didn't want me to pursue this kind of knowledge when I was little because they said it was taboo. So they consciously told me to say goodbye and get rid of it. And never told me that what I was doing was okay or had been done before in our family. So at 18, I'm finding out all these things and I feel angry, totally abandoned by my family, not just my lovely spirit friends who raised me. And it's all coming back and I'm thinking, my God, I'm losing my mind. And my grandmother goes, why don't you just be the first one in the family to really get a hold of it? Why don't you go study it? Why don't you use it to help other people? I was like, help other people? I need help. I'm not helping anybody. I'm the one going nuts. So I actually found a woman who helped me learn how to turn it off. So a lot of times you'll hear people coming into enlightenment where they raise their vibrations and they're able to perceive the information and the subtle light energy around them, whether that's through clairvoyancy, through sight, through inner sight or external, or clairaudient where they hear it internal or external, claircognizant, clairsensitive where they feel and sense, or empathy, empathic. And they kind of raise their vibrations to get into it, and then they can lower their vibrations to kind of get out of it or be human. So for me, my vibrations were kind of always in it. And I really had to learn how to disconnect to be, I guess, normal in what I would call normal. But now I think when I'm doing my abilities, that's actually the real normal. I'm going to take a sip. You can hear I have a tickle in my throat. I'm coming off a beautiful flu that allowed me to have some good time with my daughter, as Matt was telling me. It's good to have some downtime.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you coming on, even though you're not at 100%, to share your story. That's really interesting, and I like your language around everything. That's what we're taught in society, right? As if my friends think I'm crazy right now, and I don't have half the skills. I've been spending a lifetime attempting to and cultivating and developing these skills, where a lot of the time on the podcast I'll say, these are realms that I'm able to touch, but I can't live in. And I know when people can live in them, and I know when people can't exactly live in them, but they're pretending they saw it and they're trying to act like they're still in it. But I'm like, no, you're not in that right now. You're out of it, and that's fine. You saw it, but you're not in it. And I know, and it's like kind of like a unicorn or something. You see a unicorn, it blows your mind. Like, oh my God, a unicorn. No, it exists, but you don't see unicorns always. So I'm definitely at that stage where I'm in those things. So I think that, communicating with spirit, mediumship is tough for some people to handle, but like people with you, when we met, you have such a deep resonance. It's like, you're not making this up. Like Dolores Cannon, who I love, like she's a little old lady with a perm. I interviewed her daughter, Julia Cannon, a few podcasts ago, an absolutely amazing woman. And if you look at, Dolores or Julia, it's like, she's a little old lady from a small town, like the least assuming, with some pretty amazing knowledge. So do you think having these abilities, being a medium, like, can you describe what that is as like a definition? And then maybe what is the difference between a medium and a channel, if there is any, and a psychic? Or are they all the same soup?
An alphabet soup mixed in. That's really interesting. So for me, I resonate with medium. Though I am a channel, I do have the ability to trance channel, allowing spirits to come in and use my body much like a puppet, which when I say out loud sounds a little sci-fi for some of the listeners. So I get that.
I was going to say that is like exciting, like a puppet, like you have no control, more like there's you still have control in there when you run, right? You can pop in and out. or is it like you can't?
That's an interesting question, because I rely mostly on my spirit team to gauge when I need to come in and out. So I really check out. It's as if I fall into a deep sleep. I wake up, the information is not present in my consciousness. I don't know what's went down. I record it so I can listen to it. But no, I don't feel like I push the buttons anymore. When I started practicing trance channeling, that was the case. I needed my control. I needed the buttons. But as I got deeper into it, I built a certain trust with a core team of energy, and they protect me. They kind of house the experience for me. And I do my job, which is stay neutral, get out of the way, get my opinion out of the way, get my agenda out of the way, and let them come in.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a side note I want to get back to where we were going. But I've heard with channeling, you need to be careful because when you're opening up to other entities and you're moving yourself to the side. So we've got great channels like Bashar is great. If you don't know who Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks, fantastic stuff. So from what I have heard, you need to basically do an intention and clearing, and you have to have some abilities to begin with, and then only open up to benevolent beings, and then you allow. So Bashar, when he comes forth with Daryl Anka, who I hope to have on the show soon because he's awesome, he knows Bashar, and he comes on, and Bashar is epic. He's hilarious and says some really interesting stuff, and it's a very detailed channel. Same with Esther Hicks has been channeling for years and years, so very benevolent channels, very benevolent. Edgar Casey is another example. Edgar Casey has a massive body of work, and the Book of Ra, which is amazing material, is all a group of people with one specific channel doing it, and they say the same thing. So would you have any advice for people who are looking to channel and like a process so they can do it safely? Like, is there anything they should be mindful of? And because a lot of people go right into it and they're not, it's kind of like a kid playing with alcohol at 14 or something. You can drink when you know what's going on, but you might not want to drink a 40 of vodka or something.
Totally agree with you 100%. I would also add in Jane Roberts with the Seth material. That was a really wonderful trance channeling experience with a series of books. But yes, I do not take this work lightly, the trance channeling, and it is not to be taken lightly. None of this is. Even though when you're observing me, it might seem very casual, lighthearted. I use a lot of humor and silliness because that's the way that I resonate best, but it's not meant to be taken that way. And if you are interested or feel that you have these abilities to channel, whether it's trance channeling, where you full on incorporate the spirit into the body, whether it's a shared experience, you go into maybe a second level trance, you still feel like you're in your body, you have body dysmorphia, but messages are moving through you like fluid or liquid, or whether you feel more like an auctioneer, where you're hearing it come in very fast and you're repeating it, but you're very much in your own body and in control over it, but the words are just coming through so quick. So I like to distinguish between those three kinds. There's other kinds like automatic writing as a trance channel, but you definitely want boundaries, very clear boundaries. And I do teach some of this material. I have a beginners, intermediate, and advanced, and it's only in the advanced classes do I teach trance channel or any kind of channeling. And I need for my student to be in a place where they fully understand their vocabulary, the words they're saying, and their beliefs, whether it's a belief in God, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, whatever it is, higher consciousness, nothing. I need for your belief to be extremely strong and solidified within you, because that's what creates your trust and your own vibrational patterning. It's not about needing a specific belief pattern to be able to communicate with energy or entities. It's having your instrument, your body, be extremely clear and defined. So the intent and boundary setting is extremely important to me. And hopefully by the time I get them to the advance, the student already has a relationship with certain entities that they've been working with, and they can define if they're benevolent, if they're serving the purpose of higher good, health and wealth and need, or are they mischievous? And if there's any sign of mischievousness, playful or not, I call it quits. This is not the place to have that kind of energy. You can go out in the playground and have it, but when we're doing work with your physical body and translating messages for others and for self, it doesn't need to be there. So you're right, hardcore boundaries. And for me, that begins with your belief system. What you believe in is your own truth, period. So if you think that your belief system has holes in it, guess what, my friend? It has holes in it. So I work at looking at that. So unlearning, the information that's been taught to you from your parents. Oh, you're a good thinker, but you're not very good with your imagination. And so you grow up, you got all the words down, and then when it comes time to imagine something, all of a sudden your strength goes into weakness. And so we really look at, why is this happening? How can you change that for yourself? And how can you use it to support you rather than anchor you down or tear you apart? That kind of answers some of where you were going.
Yeah, 100%. Wonderful answer. Yeah, I think it is important just because, I've been in this space for a long time. I went through a psychic book tear in Calgary, probably read like maybe 20 books on the subject, was doing all the different things, trying all the different things. And so now when I see people getting into it, I'm like, they're letting these channels in. I was like, you don't really know what you're doing, do you? It's like, if you like ever even meditated first. So, this is a challenging, because it's deep, but, on the podcast, I've had lots of people talk about all kinds of things, aliens, other dimensions. So, people can handle this. So what I'm curious about though, is if there's you're a medium, so if you're going to come, like let's say I'll come for a session, sometimes it could be because you see spirits and stuff, like what is the experience like for you from your perspective? Like how do you, go through that process? Like, what is it like? What do you experience?
So I have a wonderful assistant who creates my appointments for me. So I don't get to really hear or connect to the person before the session. So when they call in, I have them on a calendar and I have their name and their phone number in case I need to contact them. And so I sit down and I meditate on their name and I ask for I call them anything and everything. To me, they look like people, but angels, guides, friends, relatives, spirits, gurus, masters, come in. If you know Matt Belair, come forward. I'm asking for you to come forward. We have an appointment right now. And I want you to speak to me in all honesty and truth, highness of health and wellness. And so I set a boundary in my space and I ask for my clients' people to come in. And then I kind of get the lay of the land. I ask, what is it that you feel Matt would like to know? And what is it you feel that Matt needs to know? And so I find it very interesting that spirits and guides, when you're communicating to that level, whether it's angels, ascended masters, anything of that nature, they really don't have an agenda. And as people, follow with me, you can argue with me here if you want, but as people, I feel like we've been trained to go into a conversation with a particular outcome. We're going to go say hi to that person because the outcome is we want them to like us. We want them to be our friend. We want them to vote for what we believe in. So we're going to go do this now in a conversation. So when you go to spirit and you communicate with them, they don't have that energy coming back at you. And so sometimes it feels so soft and light that maybe you're not connecting well enough or carrying the conversation strong enough. But then you realize the questions you're putting forth is maybe not the most, and I dare to say this word, but valued, because I don't want to go down the track of there's a right and a wrong. For me, in my experience here, I've always found that there just is. The right and the wrong is labeled by you, by the listener. You decide, I don't like that at all. No, thank you. Or, that's very good. That aligns with my morals. I accept it. Great. That's the beauty about being human. We don't want to drop that skill. But when we go into looking at energy and talking to spirits, we can't necessarily put it there because they don't resonate with that. That's very much our dimensional plane, talent and ability. And so when we go to talk to them, they don't necessarily have it. So after getting in contact with them, I try to get the spirits of Matt to kind of line up and at least have something there that they want to share that they've heard Matt going through, or that Matt's been asking, or what Matt is going to show up with today. There are some occasions in a session, the person says, "Oh, I've written down 12 questions." And I go, "Okay, let's just start with see what they have to say here in the room." And then by the end, the person goes, "Look at that. They went through all 12 of my questions and I didn't even ask them out loud." I was like, "Oh, that's great." So you get this sense that they kind of know where you are coming from and what you really want to build. And they're there to support you, but not necessarily tell you if you're right or wrong, or what you should be doing or could be doing. So it's a very different kind of conversation. It took me several years to get used to it.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks for
But
that.
any topic is on the table when you come for sessions. There's been some crazy topics, any topic. And then afterwards, I make sure that we close the session properly. We say our goodbyes. Your people go with you so that they're not coming home with me. A few times that has happened. Doesn't need to happen. They go home with you, and then the session is over. Most of the time during the sessions, I do stay conscious, and I do kind of that auctioneer channeling. I listen and I repeat, because mostly I'm on the telephone. There are some occasions when I'm face-to-face with someone that I do trance channel.
Well, okay. So one of the questions I had before I had that one was being a channel and experiencing reality as you do, which is a realm that most people cannot perceive. So you're in another realm that perceives. How does that shape the reality for you? Because, like, okay, let's say me, I can't see spirits. I can go into meditation and have weird things happen, which is cool, and I like it. But I can also choose it to happen. That's the whole thing about meditation. You can't go in there trying to get something, but I'm pretty stubborn, so I'm usually trying, give me something. I've been doing it for years and I still haven't given up. But so
keep going.
yeah. So you, let's say, I'm connecting to almost what your realm experiences now. So since you're naturally connected to this realm, do you see like a realm up to that? Like, do you see, it's kind of like almost levels of an apartment building where first floor, second floor, third floor. So you were born on the second floor and you're looking at people on the first floor and they're like, no, there's no whatever it is in the distance, right? Whether it's unicorns or Bigfoot or something. You're like, no, I'm looking right at Bigfoot right now. And, we're on the first floor telling you you're crazy because we can't see Bigfoot because there's a wall in the way. So at Bigfoot level, where you're seeing these different things, I guess, what would you offer people that are, at my level where I'm not seeing Bigfoot all the time? You're at your level. How does that differ? And is there like a level 3 that you're kind of like more aware of, if that makes sense? Because that makes sense?
Yeah, it was a really great way of breaking it down.
Thanks.
I think I do. I like that, and looking at it in layers or like an apartment building. I think as a little bit of a gloss over it, I don't want the listeners to think that a layer higher is better than. That's just something that's been ingrained to people. 2 is better than 1 because it's more, and more is better in life. So it's not like layer 1 is not the best, but there are layers. You're right. And each layer holds a different set of vibrational patterning that you can exist in. And for those people who signed up being human and just really want to nail that human experience down, really resonate in level 1, ground floor of the apartment building. And they don't see Bigfoot, like you said. So why you mentioned that, I don't know, but I love talking about Bigfoot. I sit with my husband like all the time. He watches all the series. He's like, come on, babe, tell me, is Bigfoot real? I'm like, totally real, babe. He's like, why can't they find him? I was like, in a different dimensional plane. I was like, what makes you think that we're the only creatures that exist on the earth plane, and that only the ground level of the apartment is the only place that holds life? I was like, it's pretty narrow-minded. Second floor holds life, third floor holds life, and they can exist on earth too. Now, what if the elevator got stuck between level 1 and 2? And whoever resonates in that ecosystem in the elevator between 1 and 2 exists between 1 and 2. So partly they can resonate in the third dimensional realm, which is we're really talented at. And then they can resonate in the fourth, fifth, sixth dimensional realm, which is our thoughts, imaginations, and expansion and enlightenment resonates very well at. Why can't Bigfoot do the same? He's like, oh, you're messing with me, babe. I'm like, I'm not messing with you. I really, from my understanding, believe there are life forces that can do that. You know, the human plane, this three-dimensional plane, is not the only one that holds life. So you're asking, how's it like for me being able to like be on level 2 or look down? And thank you for putting me on level 2, because in many ways I do feel like that, like when I'm pushing my cart through the grocery store and I see all the beautiful light coming off the packaging and the floors and the metals, because everything, inanimate and animate, has an energetic field, which is great. Science can measure this now, so my eyeballs and my brain isn't so crazy, but I'm still looking at it with my eyes and I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. And I get a little lost in the grocery store. And then people are coming by and spirits are coming behind them. And there's times I've been out like picking grapefruit and I'm like, oh, do you like this? And then a lady comes up behind me and she's like, oh, my grandma taught me how to pick grapefruits. You know, you push the little button where they grow in the vine and they see if it's soft. I'm like, oh, that's so clever. And nobody's standing around me. It's a dead person talking to me at the grocery store. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking out loud, right? Because I think there's a woman behind me. So I immediately go, yeah, no, I will absolutely test the grapefruit like this. Thank you so much, Mom. That's wonderful. And I pretend to put my fake Bluetooth in my pocket because I don't want to be that person in the South that's like talking to themselves at the fruit department. I mean, so there is this part where it's like I exist on both. Like maybe I'm in the elevator and I'm in this human world, but there's so much more to it. And it is beautiful and amazing. And I sincerely don't believe that my brain is any different than yours. I just didn't get that big enough amnesia kick before I came back. There was something that held on for me. And in my classes, I've been able to teach people how to waken it up. It's one of my favorite things to do in the world is like just lean over and just kind of nudge somebody and go, wakey, wakey. You can see energy. You can get information from it that's reliable and just as trustworthy as your other 5 senses. You asked earlier about the mediumship and psychic and channel. And I think somebody who is a medium is like in the middle, in the elevator between 1 and 2. And they can use their traditional 5 senses in a different layer on top. And that's the 6th sense. 6th sense is not just like this added finger or branch over here. The 6th sense is all 5 working on a different vibrational plane. Your taste is different, your eyes, your ears, nose, everything, touch, totally different. Oh, I get off on these tangents and I love talking about this stuff. You might have to reel me in.
No, that was great. I didn't want to. I had some thoughts. Hold on. I wrote some. Okay, the first one is Bigfoot. So when I was in, so I got like 3 examples of that, or 2 anyways.
Really?
When I was in, I didn't see Bigfoot, unfortunately, but when I trekked Mount Everest, I asked the guide, because I'm in the Himalayas with Mount Everest, right? So I asked my guide, I was like, hey, have you ever seen Bigfoot? And he looks at me dead serious. He goes, no, but my father said he did. And that was his answer. And it wasn't like a thing. And I was like, right on. And so I meet Sandra Walter, who's I think 1 or 2 podcasts back, and she lives 10 months of the year on Shasta, meditating, doing portals. She's intense, you know, like she is, again, like doing the work, like years. I've done months of meditation and I've had interesting experiences of things happening, but not to that level. That's a whole nother level. So the first question I asked her is like, hey, see Bigfoot? And she's like, yeah, a couple times. I was like, yes. I was like, yeah, I can't wait to see this guy. So that's a side note, but hooray for Bigfoot. And that's kind of like was her same answer. It's like he's on a different vibrational realm. On Earth, there's many different dimensions. If you look at just consciousness alone, or what we can perceive, you look at the light spectrum. For people having a hard time with this, look at how much of the light spectrum we perceive. What is it like when somebody who is just colorblind? We see nothing on the light spectrum. We are basically, deaf. How much can a dog smell compared to what we can smell, or an eagle see? We don't have a lot going on. So, but when you go in, that's where I can access these states where I experience more. So, I know that there's an ability there. So I guess what I want to ask was a practical question of just, first thing I want to say though is not all mediums and psychics are legit. Just so people know, there are charlatans out there that suck. Okay, so some people will say to me like, "Oh, well, there was this guy that I looked at him and he said he was a medium and he was horseshit." Well, he probably was. He probably was. There's many that suck, but there are many that are real. So I just want to get that out of the way and like just finish that as a statement. You agree?
I do agree.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. People would say, "Oh, have you met other people like yourself? I mean, do you?" There's a lot, and I'm like, "No, I haven't. I've met a handful. I've met a handful, and I've met thousands that say they do it, but they're doing it in a very narcissistic or agenda-driven way, or slightly in a mental illness vein. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just the way that they are trapped in their cycle. Oh, that came across kind of bad, huh?
Yeah, it did. But I'll help you out. I
Sorry.
know what you're exactly saying because I see it all the time. So for me, I've been in the weirdness forever. Like I was calling
The
psychic
weirdness.
hotlines. I've been in the weirdness. I have empathy for you because my friends, when I'm having conversations, think I'm weird and I can't see spirits directly. I've been to the realms a few times. I get to like get a train ticket and have a visit. You're like permanently on the station. So like, oh man. So I am always seeking these people. That's a part of the podcast, having them and seeking through like genuine things. Like I'm a bit of a gatekeeper for the podcast too, where some people will say, "Hey, this is my work and this is what I'm doing." And I'm like, no. It's just like, I love you. You're
No.
doing great. But so there's levels to this. You can play basketball and there's a Michael Jordan. And so you can get definitely impressions. And we all have intuition. But there are definite
Agreed.
levels to this, you know what I mean? And people who are really special in that, they are more rare. And for me, there's a handful of people that I know. Crystal Perkins is one, Sandra Walters one. I haven't seen you do it in person, but I resonate with you, so that's why you're here. And there's this like very authentic resonance of like, this is just something that I can do. And when you're for real, it's more challenging to do it than not to do it. It's like, oh man, I got to talk to people about this. Shoot, they're going to think I'm nuts. And you can't even help it. You got to do it. So that's my rant, just to kind of back you up. And I want to ask a question that can help. So for people who want to develop these abilities, what are some practical tools that we can connect with ourselves? And on the side note that, it's not about, getting more or less or having something. It's just about connecting more with yourself, more with spirit, source, or whatever you want. And if you think that this is a little bit far-fetched, I like to say, like, how many hours have you put into meditation? Like that's where you start to touch these realms. So the pathway is there for you to see and develop these abilities. And this is something that I've been developing over years of practice. As the first time I was meditating as a kid, stopped a little in my teens, meditated more. And then, it was like 21 or something when I moved from my home, meditating on a pier, and then boom, that's my first DMT, Kundalini, ayahuasca, or whatever. And I was like, holy God, and you're in it and it just shatters your reality. And then it comes back and then you're like, okay, that was real for the first 5 minutes. And then 10 minutes, you're like, was it real? And then 30 minutes. And then a day goes by and you're like, I don't know if that was real or not, and then you kid yourself and then it happens again. And so I got off on a tangent, but maybe you'd like to
No,
answer
it
the question.
takes a little while for your brain to catch up, doesn't it? It's so incredibly unique, those meditations and the way that you engage in that experience on whatever level you're at. Sometimes the brain just, needs to experience it 21 times repetitively before it grasps it and goes, oh, this is normal? Okay, that's good. You were asking if listeners were interested in building their own abilities, whether they're intuitive abilities or psychic abilities, mediumship, anything of that nature. In my classes, the way that I like to approach it is simply by the way that your natural learning skill is. So are you visual, kinetic, or an audio learner? And simply answer this question right now. If I had a book and I needed you to understand this book that I have in my hand, would you A, like me to read it to you so that you can listen to it? Or would you like to read it so that you could see it? Or would you C, like to know the story and then act it out? What would you like to do? Some of you might say, oh, I want to be A and B or A and C. I want to hear it and act it out. I want to see it and hear it. And a few of you out there are probably like, oh my God, I don't know. I want all of it. I need all of it. So you take that and then you can translate it into the clair that resonates with you. So if you're audio, clairaudient would be a skill that I would work with you. That would be your baseline, something that would be easiest for you to obtain the information from energy. If you wanted to read it yourself, you're clairvoyant, you're visual, a dreamer. And if you're C, you wanted to act the story out, and that's how you collect the information, then you're claircognizant, clairsensitive, you're an empathic. So I would first organize that. How do you learn? And then take those into an intuitive level. Because we're not trying to rewire anybody right now. We're just trying to get your brain used to the idea that there's an alternative way of collecting information, of knowing, sensing, whatever word you want to put on it. Because the way that we've been trained is that the only way you have information is if you go to school and you open a book, and it's written in a book because somebody before you knew better and studied and asked the right questions and got the answers, and now you get to know them without studying. So you're putting faith in the knowledge external from you rather than internal. So when I get somebody who's really heady and they're skeptic and they say, well, I want to learn all this because I do believe in it, but it's bullshit at the same time. You're like, okay. Most people would be like, I can't handle you. I get kind of excited. I'm like, great. Stay right there. Don't change those things. All right. Call it bullshit, be a skeptic, and be very heady, and I'm going to blow your mind. And they're like, what? I go, yes. So here's your homework for 1 week. And they're like, ugh. I'm like, just 7 days. Get a book, get a pen, and I want you to write down all the intuitive hits that you have. If you're sitting at a table and you feel like somebody's staring at you and you turn around and somebody is just eyeballing you, I want you to write it down. Somebody staring at me, check. If you have a dream, just take down notes. I don't need you to dream journal. Go back after a few days, see if anything came to fruition. Put a check mark. If you had this knowing that Dave was approaching you and you knew Dave was an asshole and you shouldn't hire him for the job, but Dave proved to be so good at the interview, you hired him anyways. Write down Dave is an asshole. And then maybe 2 months later, Dave proves to you that he's actually an asshole. And you're like, God, I wish I would have listened to that, saved myself 2 months' time of like dealing with this personality. Check. Right. So there are several things that we're doing already that we label as coincidence, aha, luck. We have all these other words for it. It's actually intuitive. And when we get our brain, the overactive brain guy that we're talking about right here, that skeptic, when we get his brain to recognize that a lot of the words he's using are actually intuitive, and the brain starts catching on, oh man, he's really good at this. We're going back to the book now because the book has the information that the authority wrote and the brain can see it. And the brain goes, oh wow, you know what? I'm not going to start calling it bullshit anymore. I'm going to start telling you this is kind of real and it's happening. And I'm going to start cheering you on to pay attention because it's making life a whole lot easier if we pay attention to this. So come on, man. And all of a sudden the brain starts to change gears. And when it changes gears naturally like that, the amount of trust between yourself and your intuitive ability, outstanding. Then all of a sudden we can look at, what do we want to call it? Are you clairvoyant, clairaudient? Because then the labels come in and sometimes the logic person goes, I'm not woo-woo, I'm not crazy like you. I don't want to do that. But they are doing it, so we'll just call it intuitive. So when teaching somebody, I do use your learning skill. I do homework, little abilities like that. And we get to understand, how are you perceiving energy naturally already? And let's build from that point. And it's important for me that when my student is building their ability, they're doing it on their own, handmade, snowflake, fingerprint. Because when I was growing up and I was looking for the gurus and the teachers, they had a process. Step 1, step 2, and then you can achieve step 3. I sucked at all of them. I was like, I can't. But when it came time to be kind of tested, Jamie, come to the middle of the room and give 20 people a reading, I could nail it. Bam, 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 bam. But I couldn't do the technique. And so I felt like a failure and weird, and it was just awkward. This is in the 90s, so it's a little while ago. But so when I teach in my class, I'm like, listen, I'll tell you the way that I do it, and then I'm going to tell you the way that other people do it, and you got to walk your own path. I'll support you. So I try to keep my classes a little bit smaller so I can really engage those conversations on being an individual rather than let's all do it the same way. But that's very important to me. I love it when your screen lights up. That's when you're taking notes and questions, right? You're so polite, Matt. You can absolutely interrupt me with your questions. Look at the smile on his face.
No,
On the audio wait, how do your listeners get to see your smile? Do they get to see the video at all?
Well, it's our YouTube channel, but not a lot of people watch. People are busy, man. They got, and I always do like an hour. I know that I don't do the podcast like, the rules are like keep it 30 to 60 minutes and all these. I'm like, nah, I'm going to have a conversation with people that I like and respect, and whatever happens is going to happen. But yeah, YouTube if they want. Wait, you're making me lose my thought with your wonderful compliment. Thank you. Right back at you.
Thank you.
We were like, yeah, I think when we first met at the Collective Evolution Party, we just saw each other. I think I was saying something and someone's like, yeah, you should talk to Jamie. And I was like, oh, well, you're awesome. We hugged it out. I really wanted to do the Toronto dance party with you and take you and, forget your friend's name. She's on your show.
Darshna Patel.
Yeah, she's amazing too. I really wanted to go party, but I had to get home, show you guys a good time. You flew all the way in just for one event. It was so worth it.
Very worth it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what I got for this. Now I got to see I'm referring to my notes here. I love what you said about why knowledge needs to come from within. And that's for me, my background in this intuition type of persuasion is we've actually been conditioned like Pavlov's dog to get our information and authority outside of us. So it's a massive point. I'm my own authority,
Yes.
I'm very confused a lot of the time, I'll tell you that. But if I have to make a decision, I'll go in and find that clarity. But, I have that I really want to connect with myself. And the other thing that I really loved is that intuition and even learning is very personal. There are infinite roads home of every high level spiritual book that I've ever read. It's like there are infinite ways home. The only requirement is that you begin to seek. The only requirement is that you start to look. And so then you find, and then you find wonderful guides. And there's a huge problem with gurus, and that automatically puts someone as above you, like when I teach an athlete or do a coaching call or something like that. I've done every process under the sun, and I'll go through some processes here and there, but one of my favorite teachers and the best guys out there is Thich Nhat Hanh, Krishnamurti. But Thich Nhat Hanh is amazing too. But Krishnamurti's like he's like playing ping pong with a wall. He's like, Krishnamurti, how do I develop my intuitive abilities? And then bam, the wall comes back. How do you develop your intuitive communities? Krishnamurti, like, how much should I meditate? Bam, hits the wall. How much do you think you should meditate? He just relentless wall. And that's really, true mastery is empowering others, showing them a way, same idea with Bruce Lee. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I love what you're saying. Keep going.
Okay, I was going to say Bruce Lee's another wonderful example for me because I grew up a martial artist and he broke the whole paradigm. It was karate, kung fu, boxing, whatever. And he's like, well, you can take bits from everything. And like maybe a guy who's 300 pounds and wide is going to be a lot better wrestler than he is going to be a guy who can do taekwondo super kicks. You got to adapt and make your own. So really important insights that you're sharing into that. And so just whatever resonates with you, you could get Jamie's book and listen to hers. You could listen to my podcast. You could do some of the meditations I have. You could find some Tony Robbins stuff. You like Tony. And just ultimately though, maybe you just want to go outside and sit in the grass, whatever is calling to you, then do that. So the question I had as a follow-up is, what about for the people who are in transition, because I think we're at a really interesting time on the planet and a lot of people's life, like, I'm kind of locked in. I want to connect with myself. I'm not really sure exactly what to do, but I know I need to change and I want to change and I want to be healthier and I want to connect more to spirit and I want to do all that kind of stuff and I want to shift in my life. Do you have a process for just like decision making or starting a process like that? Because a a lot of times people might make I guess it's kind of two questions. One is a big decision that they need to make. Should I quit my job, not quit my job? And then also steering in the right direction with where they want to go. It's like, I know I need to change. I'm doing this. I freaking hate everything. I need to change it. What do I do with myself? And then so they come from a reading for you, or let's say I had psychic powers, they're coaching with me. Mine is just like, yo, what do you want to do? That's what I'd say. So we start there. And so the guides, they give guidance. There's no answer, right? I'm very clear. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to give you an answer and then it's all done. I can help you with you finding a direction. So
yes.
You go.
Yeah, and similar in a session communicating to spirits, more commonly they'll come from, what do you need? Like from quitting the job or your big decision, what do you need the outcome to do for you? And so they engage them in the conversation. And then what's neat about spirit is they're able to kind of lay a groundwork. Okay, let's take, for example, if you need X, Y, Z and you take this path, or if you need A, B, C and you take this path, and looking at the changes in the energy and how you'd be able to navigate and maintain your character in the way that you desire to. And so it's a really healthy way of being able to kind of try something on without having to follow through and do it. And it's nice because in this realm of having a reading, the client can ask all kinds of, I'll say, futuristic questions, because we are going to pretend that time is linear. And I know that's a whole nother conversation. But it's not that spirit can tell you exactly what's happening in the future, but they can give you the most plausible outcome by looking at your decisions you've made in the past and what you're most likely going to decide in the future. And it's really nice that they can do that for you. But with the people who are kind of wanting to make a change immediately, what I have found useful for me is start with the heavy stuff first. And that doesn't mean like the most burdened emotional stuff. I mean, your environment. That is the heaviest, densest, energetically possible space that you have. Clean out your environment. Get your environment to support who you want to be when you grow up. That's in air quotes for you listeners, because I don't really believe in growing up, but start with your environment. Get rid of things. Purchase the things that you need to support you. Really shift it, because then moving the subtle energy, which is lighter, but in many ways needs more focus and more allowance for it to change, that if the environment is blocking it, you're going to have a harder time just kind of making it happen, forcing. So work your space first, then move on to the lighter, subtle energy layers and come from there, and you'll find that it gives more ease. That's in a nutshell, like a very basic.
Yeah, I think that's a tremendous answer. I dig that. One of the I was talking to a friend. What the heck were we talking about? Just I don't know. We're always talking about different things, but the point is, Extreme Ownership is a podcast by a Navy SEAL that I would love to listen to. So I haven't even listened to it, but he's a Navy SEAL and I hear great things. But one of the things I heard this from Mark Divine too. He wrote an amazing book on sports psychology. I wish I read that before I wrote Zen Athlete, but interestingly enough, all the main characteristics I have in there, other than a couple of things, and he actually talks about Zen in his book, which is awesome because he's legit. He knows his business. And so the point is that he talks about the importance of making your bed in the morning, mental clutter, things like that. We're decision making, fewer decisions, right? Even these little tiny decisions when you're scrolling through, it's taking energy. All these little micro decisions all take energy. So really getting to simple basics, what is important? What do you want more of? Decluttering your space, making life easier on yourself. And, when you do that, you put the energy in motion. You're starting somewhere. What is it? The mother of all something is action. The mother of all progress is action. There's a quote like that, something like that. So it just goes to say that the point is taking action in that step, and that's when you can begin to actually see results.
Yeah, even if your listeners are like, how do I learn to love myself? Or how do I become a medium? Or how do I be a better athlete? I would still approach it as you mentioned, the author in the book, make your bed. Get up and look at your physical space, because that's what you're living in. Energetically, one of my favorite items to look at with anybody is their bed. Like their bed is their church. You spend more time there than any other place. You do all your downloading and thinking, you do all your dreaming, your resting, your healing, your everything. So look at the energy stuck in your pillow, your bed, your bed frame, the energy stuck in the floor underneath your bed. I mean, you dust, you brush your teeth, you comb your hair. Why don't you clean the energy off your bed too? Then cleaning that, grooming that space, and making the bed and tending to it. Because then when you go to rest in it, it's clean, it's good, it's supporting you, and it feels different. Trust me, it feels different. You
Well,
don't know me yet, but
yeah, no, that's a very interesting point because recently, I made a wince face when you're talking about the bed because my bed's always it's a lot of time it's messy and my girlfriend gives me crap for it. She's like, "What are you always doing to the bed?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. I'm sleeping in. I get up. I got things to do." Recently, I've been making sure that the bed is made, and I've gone through stages like this, and then I'm going through Sandra Walter's Ascension Path, which is a fantastic program, about just over halfway through, and then I have crystals and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, oh man, so I have crystals near my bed, but now I'm going to crystal grid the whole thing. When I was in Sedona, I was sleeping under a pyramid with it crystal gridded to the max, and I was like, why is this not crystal gridded? So I realized that today. I was like, I got to crystal grid the crap out of my bed.
yes.
I got my buddies. Oh, you didn't meet Jason. I got one of his pyramids. He gave it to my birthday. Thank you, brother, Jason.
Shout out to Jason.
Yeah. I keep giving him the shout outs. I had such a good time with him with eye pyramids. His stuff is gnarly. And I have one of the these little mini pyramids I take with me, but it really does work. So when you have this space, because there's your brain goes in two different states, Jeeps like beta, alpha, theta, delta. Well, when you sleep, all of this stuff is going on. And so when people are talking about, meditation or enlightenment or spirits or all these different things, well, when I get into the weirdness, I call it, it always comes when I move my consciousness out and I hit different brainwave states, which takes practice and meditation to experience. And then it doesn't go from a thought, it goes to a direct experience. And this is why I know, because it happens to me, not just once, it happens a lot, and that's how you do it. And you could do it, but you're telling me this doesn't exist. You can't even clear your mind. You're like, well, come on, like, what do you want? Like, come on, man. I was like, yeah, 5 minutes. You're like, come on, like, so. These simple things really do have an amazing result. So do you like any other practices like journaling or I like left hand writing, things like that, that really just kind of cue that process? So one of the things that I'll share with the audience that I like to do is whenever I'm faced with a decision or I want to get clarity. So one of them, and I'm always redoing this, is what's my dream, what's my passion, what's my purpose, what's my mission? And I'll actually write it out with my left hand. And every month or two, I'll probably do this, and it'll slightly change and continue to refine and continue to refine. So when you use your non-dominant hand, it kind of triggers another side of your brain, and again, you're using this part, and you're connecting to your intuitive side. So do you have any other like simple tips like that that could yield results?
For me, I like physical activity. So, be it with any kind of level of health that you are, if it's a walking foam roller, rocking chair, if you're not capable, or swinging in a hammock, getting the motion, getting on a chi machine, and getting my body to kind of shake loose because in my body, when I'm matched with decisions, sometimes I'll kind of clinch or hold on to something or try to be the good girl. And in my family, I was raised to be polite. In the South here, we are very polite and well-mannered. And we like to think about how other people view us, and we want to please them. And that's what's, nice. So, right, I got to shake it off of me. So I'll go for a walk. I even do Tarzan beats, thymus thumps, where I squeeze my fingers together and hit my thymus really hard. Sometimes I'll chant, hum, hit the om for a little bit. And then when that energy is off my body, I can see it differently. I love the way he's giggling. Did you just mute your... Don't mute the laughter. It's so cute.
Well, that's good. Well, also I'm typing too, but yeah, you're cracking me up there. Well, because I know it's kind of silly stuff. but it works tremendously. Just little things, again, going through the ascension path via Sandra Walter, and a lot of other things I've seen, but a lot of the same basics are coming up. So one of them is the sound of your own voice, to harmonize the space. So if you feel weird, ohms, harmonize. We're beings of frequency. We know that. So using your own voice. One thing that I do as often as I can is yell at the top of my lungs whenever I get to a space where I can yell. Like, how powerful can you yell? Like, it's just when you're a kid, you're doing it all the time, but it's like, it's just an energy that you're releasing. And even when I do it, it takes me probably 2 or 3 to do it to the max. And I still have this little tiny voice in my head that's like yelling, and people are going to look at you, but it's just like, I'm in my body and want to experience my body. I just want to release energy. Like, when you're a kid, you see how far you can jump, but we're taught
Oh,
to
yeah.
basically go back and back and back into the container that everybody else can handle. Same, your mediumship is another thing where you better keep that container over here far away and hope Doug from down the street doesn't find out.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to add, vibration is the deepest form of touch. I think most of us know that, but we kind of put it in the background and we forget about it. So that screaming, shouting, chanting, walking, beating, rhythm, all of that is touching every cell inside of your body. It's a physical touch. So that's what's so wonderful about getting that going and kind of releasing the energy that you don't need, use, want, desire, and kind of regroup.
Yes, 100%.
And I refuse to be in a container.
I can see that. Okay, so I'm curious for you with the clients you've had, with the work that you've done, people coming in and they're asking questions and maybe going through transformation or whatever the case is. What would you like to, like, I had this clear in my head before I started using words.
Words get in the way.
I know. As I said, especially when trying to formulate a good question, which is my job. But luckily, no one's paying me for this, so I can do what I want. Okay. What would you like to empower people with? Like to shift, what belief systems or things, or like coming into like self-love and a harmonious experience, and as they shift, do you see them dropping an old belief set into a new belief set, or coming up with new practices, or just like a shift? You kind of know what I'm getting at. Like, how would you want to empower somebody, or what would you recommend? Like, what would you want them to experience, and how do they get there? I swear in my head this was a linear question, but we both talked about how time, that's a whole nother thing. So we're just going to say that's what happened with the question, but I feel like you kind of know what I'm getting at.
Like I'll call it my fun of why I show up every day. And I have hopes, but it's a great disappointment when you come across the day that you recognize that you cannot change anyone. It takes a little moment of grief, because when you're little and you see a teacher and you define the teacher, the one who's the authority or the knowing, having the ability to be able to change you, but really it's a moment of inspiration. So if I had the hopes of being able to inspire someone, it would I think my number one, besides waking up and realizing that my voice is so deep. I kind of like this chest cold right now. I normally sound like Minnie Mouse, and I have such a nice voice right now.
Wonderful.
That I would want them to be inspired to know that their intuitive ability is natural, and that it's not to be reserved for special occasion. Like, we don't reserve our smell or sense of smell for that time where mom makes a cake, or something comes and somebody's like, oh, you've got to smell this, and you're like, oh, let me turn it on. Yeah, it smells great. No, you smell every second of your waking life. You breathe all the time. It's my hopes that people use intuition the same way. And intuition lies on top of all 5 of their senses. And then beyond that, it would be my hopes that people see life and their life that they're in as valuable and never ending, so that this sense of death is not just a cutoff and a moment of separation, that there is a continuance of life and that person and their character and whom they are and how they can still have a relationship with you. I call it the new relationship. So, if you want, we can boil it down and say, Jamie Butler, what's your agenda? Even though I do my best not to have an agenda, it would be that you can see that you're intuitive every second of the day, and that this energy and this life continues to exist beyond what you're living in. Ding,
Amazing.
hit the ball.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
I'm glad you could give an answer with the way I formed that question, and that's pretty much what I was trying to ask. So I guess what I'm curious about is a lot of talk of ascension or going into a new realm of consciousness or a big shift on the planet. You having these abilities is quotes, but really you have these abilities, so not air quotes. Do you see anything like that? Do you see a rise in consciousness among the masses? Do you see us heading to a state where we have a more evolved consciousness, connections consciousness? Like, it was Roger Nelson was the last podcast, and he talks about the noosphere and this mass collective consciousness, this intuitive field where we can connect it into it. So that's kind of how I see it personally, is this like this just expanded consciousness. So what do you feel about that?
I'd say you're hitting it on the nose.
Oh, nice.
That's how I view it too. In my meditations in the morning is when I meditate. And probably around 2006, my guide started talking about 2015. Like, get ready. 2015, you're finally going to start seeing visually the shift show up in the media. People are going to finally start talking about it. It's already happening, but now it's going to be in a mass media. So from 2017 or 15 to 17, they said it's going to be all the talk. So I was like, well, that's interesting. And I kind of expected to wake up one day and maybe I would have a third arm, or like something has boom, different DNA, more cells, more something, less fat. I don't know, just anything. And it hasn't happened. But at the same time, the way that I'm engaging psychically, intuitively, energetically has expanded greatly, way more heightened, way more sensitive, way more clean and thorough. Like the dream state is very clean, of finding the people I need to find, manifesting. When I'm very clear, it is spooky. You're like, this can't be happening. I just wanted a pencil. And somebody comes by and goes, need a pencil? I'm like, yes. Why are you giving it to me? I don't know. I just wanted to give it to you. Thank you. Like, is anybody seeing this? Still my human head is like blown away, but it's occurring. So it's not that, some people are dying off. I kind of like to look at it like in the status of social status. We have poverty, poor, middle class, and then the wealthy. So if we look at enlightenment or energetic values in this same way, which yes, I'm putting it in levels, there are those who will be far removed from the enlightenment or wanting to experience different levels of vibrations. So it's not like it's a mass sweep. It's almost available for those who have been working on it, if that makes sense. If you are willing and ready to accept it or to grow it, then it's happening. But if you're not interested in it, you're not being forced into it. So for those who are observing it, it might come across in different classes or layers, but I'm hoping in defining it this way that we can look at it that everybody is in their right place, that no one has been judged or punished or rewarded and praised, that it is exactly where we need to be. And I think this level of respect for our differences and what we're choosing and what choices we have made in the past and in the future, if we begin to respect those, our sense of community and the ability to enlighten even more or reach different vibrational levels is just going to boost up. I think the biggest key through this earth shift is a non-judgment value and acceptance for all that is. And that's going to be what you want to call good or what you want to call bad as well. That's going to open it up. Was that clear enough? I was trying to define it. Sometimes I can see it in my head just like you, Matt, and then the words come out and it's like, meh, I don't think so.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. And from my perspective, it's allowing more options mentally, energetically, spiritually, almost a new paradigm. One of the things from Dolores Cannon is she says, and I don't know if this is true, but I like it. I like the thought. Could be true. And, probably, who knows? But 144,000 souls come back because Earth is going through this shift. And, if you look at what's going on, at the news, and it's probably not even nearly that bad. They're finding those things, but the Earth needs help. With the planet and everything's going on, we're destroying it. So 144,000 people, you included, everybody listening to this, everyone on the planet has this option where we can start to go towards community, go towards building an environment within ourselves, within our communities, within our cities, within our countries, within the planet that supports everything, that supports everyone. And then we now have that option, and it's just a new preference because the way we're going, we're basically, driving the ship into the ground. And that feeling of light or ascension or whatever you want to call it is a choice towards cooperation and love. That's how I see it anyway. It's a choice between cooperation and love. And I choose community and serving and helping and just doing what I can as I meander through this confusion. It's always fun when people tell me they know what's going on, or I listen to it on YouTube, like, this is what's going on. And this is like, all right, all right, sure, because I know you don't know, because I've been to places there's no way you can know. It's impossible. Science, even that, there's even that changes. When we have new information, we expand out. So I totally resonate with that. And I think you answered it nicely. So I guess the last thing I want to ask you is there anything that you wish that I had talked about or asked you, or that you're really excited about in your life that you're working on? We didn't really touch on the Lighter Side Network, which I wanted to do. I could have talked to you for like 2 hours. So if you want to touch on that and leave them with some advice or anywhere you want to go, I'm game with that. So that's what I want to ask.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the Lighter Side Network. It happened to be an all-women cast. I launched a network here in the South. We have 5 different shows, but like you mentioned at the beginning of this one, it's all based on wholeness living, and it's kind of getting the everyday to meet the extraordinary. So it's simply, how are we using our heightened skills, our wholeness living in a very everyday manner? And we have psychotherapists from science to doctors to pranic healers to mediumships. And one of my pride moments is that all the material, all the content is viewer funded, that we chose not to go the route of sponsorships or ads or product placement to drive the content. And we've really been working it from the ground up in a very slow, methodical, authentic kind of a way to get the material out there from the heart. It's been quite a challenge, but it's been really rewarding. And we've just now launched on our own website, so we're kind of managing our own material, and it's doing good. Awesome. I'm on the set right now. What did you call the set? Tell your listeners. I thought it was so cute. Look at it.
Yeah, it just reminded me of, I don't know, some sort of like 90s, like, yeah, it looked like a TV set, I don't know. It definitely seems like you're in something doing.
No, you called it like a kid's set.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, definitely, totally.
I'm very playful.
Yeah,
I
the
like
little
that.
blocks for sure. It is inviting. Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Well, and everything that I know that you've been working really hard on what you've been doing. We made friends, and I connected, and you made some time for me, and then I have to go through an assistant, so it's like a whole official thing going on, and you're working your butt off. So I just wanted to commend you for all the effort that you're putting in towards this, because I know what your intentions are and the value that you're gonna have with your network, and just for all the work that you're doing and just who you are and all that fun stuff. Lots of compliments being sent your way in my brain. The words are not
Why are
working
you so
again.
far away? I'd come over and hug you again.
Yeah, well, we'll make it
Matt
happen.
Belair is a great hugger. If you see him on the streets, listeners, you have to give him a hug.
Yeah, it's funny. Actually, I was at contact in the desert, and this girl just walks up to me, and she's like, "Hi." I was like, "Hi." And then she goes for a hug. It's like, heck yeah, I'll go for a hug. So I give her a huge hug. And she's like, "Do you know who I am?" I was like, "No." And she's like, she's like, "You're giving me this much love and you don't know who I am?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm Erica." And I was like, "Oh." And she's the one who schedules for the Positive Head. So we've been the Positive Head podcast. Shout out to Brandon Beecham. Excellent podcast. Amazing human being. So I had known her. I was like, "Oh, okay, it's cool." So yeah, man. Well, that's one I got from my mom. No crap hugs. And then also Burning Man and festivals. Like I came into Burning Man and festivals with a great hug, but then I'm at like
Mm,
mastery level. So you put some kindness in
I'm
there.
top
One
level hugs you have.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate that. And I was just gonna say, one of the things I've kind of said to my friends before in conversations is that it'd be really interesting that if the norm was not to shake hands, would be to hug. So the only,
I'm
for
in.
you to, I don't know, and then what?
I'm in. I want to
Oh,
do the
you're
hug
in, you're
thing.
in.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
in.
And I respect some people don't want hugs, but usually it's because they didn't have, there's something going on there. They don't want to be touched or whatever the case is. That's fine. You don't have to have a hug. I'm just saying for the norm, it's hugging. And, this, if you live in a small community and you're all hugging, you're like kind of sharing where you are, you can just tell if someone's hurt or need love and it's balanced people that give really great hugs. And, the more love that they're full of, you get that. So when you're both, like Burning Man, I'm hugging my boys, there's like tons of energy going on and everybody's super stoked. I was just thinking about at Burning Man, you do the cinnamon roll. Have you ever seen that before? Maybe you could do that as like one of your work things. You all hold hands in a line, and then one person starts to fold in, and you do this whole thing, and you make a
Spiral.
cinnamon. Yeah, you make a cinnamon bun, and there's a person in the middle. So it's pretty exciting. I had that at my first time at Burning Man after leading guided meditation. It was pretty awesome. So it's one of my favorite memories. But that's a huge tangent, and it's supposed to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I love you. I appreciate you. Where can people find more about you? That technical details.
Technical details. I love you. Thank you for
Thank you.
having me. This has been wonderful. I so love the way that you converse and drop in these very thoughtful questions in the middle of it, and just is like a conversation. Technical stuff, jamiebutlermedium.com, and it's also on Facebook and Instagram, Jamie Butler Medium, as well as the network, the lightersidenetwork.com.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming. I love you. I definitely invite everybody to go check out your work. I'm excited to have your network grow. Right, you're launched now. You could get into it. You're ready to go. Last time we talked, it was in the middle stages. Now we're full on. Get in there.
Yes, you can get in there, and we have a
All
coupon
right.
right now on our website, Gratitude. Drop in the Gratitude coupon for over 40% off on our monthly subscriptions, and you get 26 shows a month. So
What?
awesome.
Cool.
Yes,
Well,
we produce 26 shows a month.
so this is, I didn't know, the coupon or whatever the case is, but I do know this, that
What do you
regular
know?
TV, John D'Souza was on the podcast and he goes, being a and this guy's a former FBI agent for 20 years. He's the real life Mulder. And he goes, a para investigator, you have these assumptions. And he's like, you must assume that what you're absorbing on news and television and media is a lie. And what people tell you is the truth. That's your underlying fundamentals. So I know that there's no better time to unplug from the television and plug into conscious content. And so, I know from the little that I've seen, it would be inspiring, it would be useful, they would be conversations, and a lot of people don't have these networks. So highly recommend checking it out. So that's a little
Yes,
plug for you.
that's incredible. I love that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have a little secret wish.
Oh, okay.
You can edit. You can't edit this out. Can you edit this out? This is about to get personal.
No, it's live. I can't. If you could say.
You can't edit it?
No.
Can I
Well, I
say
could.
this?
Yeah, if you want. Yeah.
I love the Canadian accent. Can you
Oh,
give me
all right.
some like out and abouts and things like that?
Oh my God.
It's
You
so
just
cute.
next time we see each other, you are now not getting a hug for that. No,
Come on.
I'll send you some maple syrup and I'll give you all the outs and abouts when I see you next.
Thank you.
Ass. You ass. All right. See you later. Thanks everyone
I
for
will die a
listening.
happy girl. Thank you, Matt.
Bye.